We've now won 2 out of 5 trophies in the Pentagon Challenge, after lifting the AFC Champions League with Cerezo Osaka last time out. 5 minutes after being congratulated by the board, I resigned from the club. We now need to switch our attention to North America. Given the CONCACAF Champions Cup has been dominated by Mexican and American clubs, we need to target jobs there. But the only job available right now is at Club America in Mexico, which would be unreal if we could get the job, because they're one of the most successful sides in all of Mexico. Thanks to our time in Japan, the coaching badges have really improved my attributes, and I've got 3.5 stars of reputation. So I think we have a decent shout of getting the job. But as we're looking for our first job in North America, they may not want to take a chance on a guy who's not managed in the continent before. Still, I applied for the job, and 3.5 weeks later, I was offered an interview. As you would have all predicted, the board are very concerned I haven't managed in the country before. So, as I always do, I told them it had been a dream of mine to manage in Mexico. They also say Club America receive a lot of media attention, and apparently my media handling isn't great. Well, actually, it's non-existent. I always get my assistant manager to do my press conferences for me, but nevertheless, I promised them I would improve. They also want me to meet the club's expectations, something the previous manager didn't do. So I got a little bit cocky and told them my record speaks for itself. I think I am a special one. The initial media reaction was highly positive, and I am now the leading candidate for the job. And then the job offer arrived. From the Japanese Football Association wanting me to take on the national team job. Thanks for the offer, but no thanks. Do they not realise how bad international management is in Football Manager? Luckily, a few days later, an offer from Club America did arrive, which of course I accepted. So we are moving to Mexico, where winning the Champions Cup is surely going to be easy. We have a really solid base squad, but we do need to bring in a few new faces. Our best player is Cade Cowell, but he wants to leave the club, so if a bid for the right amount of money comes in, I'll let him go. Especially as we're only allowed 9 non-Mexican born players in the team. So although Cade has Mexican citizenship, he wasn't born there, so doesn't count towards the Mexican born contingent. And we need to have 12 of them in at least every matchday squad. So as a result, I signed a few more Mexican-born players for £18 million, most notably Braulio Tiniero, on deadline day from big rivals Tigres. With him in the side, we are predicted to be crowned champions this season. However, Mexico technically have 2 leagues in one season. There is an opening stage and a closing stage. In both stages, all teams play each other once, so 17 games. At the end of this, there's a short knockout competition for the best sides, with the winner being crowned champion of that stage. So basically, every single season, there are 2 champions unless the same team wins the opening and closing phase of the season. Also, it's worth pointing out that the finalists of both finals get Champions Cup football for the next season. Mexico also do have a few more places for the Champions Cup, and they get given to teams who have finished best across the 2 phases of the season. So our first game in charge of the club is a big derby called the Clásico de Clásicos against big rivals Chivas. We opened up the scoring on 9 minutes with 20-year-old striker Gerson Rodriguez. In the last kick of the half though, Chivas managed to equalise. But Gerson Rodriguez made sure we won the derby, scoring from close range to take home the spoils. Next up we had our biggest rivals for the title, Tigres. But we made short work of them, with a 2-0 win as Rodriguez scored his 3rd goal of the season. And then we won our 3rd game of the season against Atletico San Luis for the perfect start. Now we actually have a little break to play in the Leagues Cup, which, if I'm correct in thinking, is basically the Bristol Street Motors Trophy for teams in the MLS and Liga MX. We won't focus on it too much because it's not that important, but it does mean we can test ourselves against teams from MLS. If we win, we made the right call going to Mexico, but if we lose, well, maybe we should have waited for a job in America. However, a 5-0 win over Montreal, with Cade Cowell scoring a hat-trick as he didn't end up leaving the club, suggests we are way better than Canadian sides, but Nashville beat us 1-0. But they also drew with Montreal, And like in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy, a draw results in a penalty shootout, with the winner getting the extra point, which is why Nashville have 5 points from 1 win and a draw in the group stage. So although we came second, we do qualify for the quarterfinals, where we beat Sporting Kansas City to progress to the semi-finals, where we also beat Atlas from Mexico. However, in the final against Monterrey, new boy Tiernero was credited with an own goal. Fortunately, we then equalised with a nice move from a corner routine, but we didn't have enough about us to win the game, as Monterrey scored the winner in the 80th minute. Now, it's clear from what we've seen so far, we have been very lucky getting the Club America job. The team is excellent. So whilst I don't care about losing in the Leagues Cup, it's a bit of a Mickey Mouse trophy to me, I don't want to make losing finals a habit. Especially as we may well have 2 finals a season in Liga MX. Things have been going very well for us as we finished the opening stage of the season completely unbeaten. It feels like an incredible achievement. But seeing as though we only played 17 games, we actually only topped the table by 6 points. So the opening day of the season win over Chivas was crucial. The top 12 teams go into a knockout tournament, but the top 4 teams get a bye straight into the quarterfinals. We'd been drawn against Atlas, and we scored first to take the lead. But it ended up being a really tight game, and in the 69th minute, Atlas scored, meaning that concerningly, we drew the first leg. And even more concerningly, we drew the second leg 0-0, but we still managed to progress thanks to a rule I have never heard of before. In the result of a draw, the team with the higher league position wins. That feels incredibly unfair to me, but we have benefited, much like we did with the away goal situation in Asia, so I won't complain too much. In the semi-finals, we were drawn against Tigres. After an unbeaten opening stage of the season, we were always going to lose a game at some point, but to lose away from home 3-1 was devastating, and it means we have our backs against the wall in the second leg. However, Cade Cowell took that defeat personally, and at our place, he scored twice to make it 3-3 on aggregate, meaning we progressed to the final thanks to this we finished higher than you rule. And so in the final, we faced Monterrey, the team that beat us in the Leagues Cup final, and once again they beat us in the first leg, winning 2-0. But it could have been 2-1 if Lucas Beltran didn't have his penalty save. He did make amends for it in the second leg at our place, scoring a wonderful goal, but it wasn't enough. We may have won 1-0, but we lost 2-1 on aggregate. Had Beltran scored his penalty, we would have been crowned champions of the opening stage of the season, thanks to the higher seed wins rule. So, like I said earlier, I don't want to make a habit of losing cup finals, but that's now 2 that we've lost. Luckily, that's technically only half of the season, and we still have to take part in the Champions Cup. Played from February to May, it's a simple knockout tournament with 2 legs played in each round. We thought we'd been given a kind draw, as we take on Defence Force from Trinidad and Tobago, but it turns out I was wrong to underestimate them, as after going 3-0 up, they fought back to score 2 goals late on, meaning we just come away 3-2 winners to have a slight advantage for the second leg in Mexico. But at our place, we took hold of the game, didn't let go, and progressed to the second round. Here we faced Seattle Sounders, and despite the Sounders being the stronger side on the night, we took the 1-0 win. Then at our place, we dominated the match, not allowing Seattle a single shot on goal as we won 2-0 to progress. In the quarters, we've been drawn against FC Tulsa, who play in America's USL League, basically the second division, but they can't get promoted. They won last season's US Open Cup, which grants them a place in the Champions Cup. So they've done incredibly well to reach the quarterfinals. But you know, they're just a second division club. They don't really belong here with the big boys, so this will be a walk in the park. In the first leg at our place, we raced into a 2-goal lead, but stupidly gifted Tulsa what would surely be just a consolation goal. Tulsa are so rubbish, they then scored an own goal to give us a 3-1 lead, and because the game was so easy, our defenders fell asleep, which allowed Tulsa to score a second. We won 3-2, but we dominated the stats, and they only scored from their 2 shots on target. So I'm not particularly worried. When we go to their place, we will show them what a real football team looks like. Well, it's not ideal, that is it really? Somehow we lost the match 1-0 and as a result, lost on away goals to a tiny team from Oklahoma in the Champions Cup quarterfinals. We have been humbled, and from now on I will never underestimate another opponent. Especially as the board might sack me if we lose at this stage again. They were not happy. But luckily they were happy we topped the table in the closing stage of the season and reached another league final where we could be crowned champions, as well as Monterrey were earlier this season. In the Clásico de Clásicos, we drew 0-0 in the first leg, and the only difference between the two sides in the second leg was a Lucas Beltran goal. So finally, we have won something this season. It's not quite what we wanted, but luckily we're going to have another shot at the Champions Cup next season, where I started it off by selling our starting goalkeeper and ball-winning midfielder. In their place come Italian goalkeeper Cardinale for £2.3 million from AC Milan, and a familiar face in Kazuya Onaga for £5.7 million from former club Cerezo Osaka. He helped us win the AFC Champions League and was the best value option available for a new ball-winning midfielder. Before you ask, yes, I did try and sign Moon. He wasn't interested in joining to us, and he's gone to a club in Saudi Arabia instead. But neither of our new signings were particularly useful in our 3-2 opening day loss against Chivas, as it was all too easy for our rivals to win the match. And the only reason we didn't lose to Monterrey was because we managed to score a penalty, so not really a great start. But this season we got to skip the League's Cup group stage, which gave us a chance to rest up and reset. So whilst we did lose in the semi-finals, we got back to winning ways in League MX, putting us on top of the table halfway through the opening stage. So when we beat our closest rivals Pachuca 1-0 at home, it gave us the confidence to win the majority of our matches and top the opening phase table. In the quarterfinals of the opening stage knockout rounds, we thrashed Mazatlan 3-0 in the opening leg at their place, which meant a 0-0 draw at our place was enough to progress. In our semi-final first leg against Monterrey, both teams scored inside of 5 minutes to draw the match 1-1. But we took charge in the second leg, winning 6-1 to make another final. But we had a poor start, as our opponents Leon took the lead on 10 minutes from a corner. Luckily for us though, 10 minutes later, we scored an equaliser from close range. But Leon went on to score 2 goals in the 90th minute. Both of them admittedly were incredibly good, but they won the leg 3-1. So we need a big win back at our place. But Leon parked the bus, didn't have a single shot against us, and somehow kept the game to a 0-0 to claim the opening stage title. So for those of you counting, that's now 4 finals we've been in, and we've lost 3 of them. This season we've been put straight into the second round of the Champions Cup, where we're facing off against Minnesota United. An injury to starting striker Lucas Beltran meant we had to play with backup Pedro Rincon instead, but he justified his selection with 2 early goals. Early in the second half though, Minnesota United pulled one back, but luckily 5 minutes later, Onaga scored to restore the 2-goal lead. Then late in the game, Rincon finished off the job by completing his hat-trick to win the first leg in Minnesota 4-1. Beltran was back in the lineup for the second leg, and he opened up the scoring on 33 minutes. We then doubled our lead on the night a few moments later, and although Minnesota scored a consolation goal, they just couldn't beat us. We progressed to the quarterfinals, where we're taking on Tijuana, where all 8 sides are from Mexico. At our place, Lucas Beltran scored a brace. His first was a penalty, obviously his goal, and his second was a very lucky deflection that sent Cade Cow's shot past the keeper. But in the second leg, we kind of FM'd Tijuana, who had more shots and a higher XG, but the win sends us to the semi-finals, where we avoid Chivas and Monterrey to face off against Atlas. At our place, Atlas actually took the lead of the game at the end of the first half with a powerful shot. But after raging at the boys at half time, 2 minutes into the second half, Cade Cow got an equaliser, and then turned provider for our second goal to take the lead. Crucially, we never give up, and we managed to sneak in a third goal in the 94th minute when we were only meant to have 3 minutes of added time. That could be really important, because in the second leg, Atlas take the lead thanks to a defensive blunder from us. Now luckily we immediately made amends as we scored 90 seconds later, but Atlas scored a second goal just before halftime to make it 4-3 on aggregate. The game wound down, but in the 85th minute, Atlas had a golden opportunity, basically taking a shot at an open goal, but they hit the crossbar. As a result, we win the game and we're going to the Champions Cup final. All thanks to a referee who didn't blow his whistle on time, which led to us scoring a goal to win the game on aggregate. So we're now pitted against big rivals Chivas in the Clásico de Clásicos in a winner-takes-all one-match final. The first highlight of the game comes our way, as we dribble the ball down the near side of the pitch. Cal gets on the end of the cross, but his header is atrocious. 20 minutes into the game, we have a chance to shoot from a free kick, but the effort cannons off the crossbar and Chivas deal with the danger, go to the other end of the pitch, and almost get lucky with deflections in the 6-yard area. So a goal was certainly coming, just one of these two sides had to take their chances. But when Chivas found Herrera in acres of space on the near side of the pitch, he punished our poor defending and scored a neat curling effort past Cardinale to give our opponents the lead heading into half-time. Oh, I can't do it. How are we losing every final we're in? How are we this bad at bottling stuff? Our entire existence at the club was epitomised in the 52nd minute. An incredible run from Rodriguez is exactly like us. Unstoppable in the league. Absolutely perfect up to the semi-finals in all knockout competitions. But Beltran's shot was us in the finals. We just can't finish it off. Beltran and Cal are meant to be our big star players, but they're letting us down on a 6.3 and a 6.1. So I'm taking them off the pitch and going more attacking with our mentality. But this allowed Chivas to have a golden opportunity. As we committed men forwards, they got on the counter. But luckily for us, they hit the crossbar to keep the deficit to 1 goal. But as we overcommitted again, this time we weren't so lucky. We allowed Van Rankin through, and this time he finished it off. However, with 10 minutes to go, substitute Pedro Rincon gave us a lifeline as Rodriguez's header hit the crossbar and the ball fell to Rincon's feet, who scored from point-blank range. Chivas were rattled and wanted that 2-goal lead back desperately. Luckily for us though, their set-piece routine went just wide. However, they eventually found a way through, scoring a third goal in the 93rd minute to win the Champions Cup 3-1. So as we watch Chivas lift the trophy, we have to ask ourselves a tough question. Are we at the right club? There are 3 jobs available right now in MLS, and I am very tempted by LAFC. But we saw this season that all 8 of the quarterfinalists in the Champions Cup were from Mexico. Genuinely, I think if we went to MLS, even to a club like LAFC who have a lot of money, it would be a step backwards. Also, it's very unlikely that another top job in Mexico will become available in the next 6 months. So I think we have to just stay put. And if we're going to win the Champions Cup, we need to make a drastic change. Also, I'm trying to keep the tension going by saying we're going to make a drastic change in the transfer window coming up this summer, but I can hear a few of you guys at the back asking the question, hey Tom, what happened in the closing stage of the season? Well, obviously we topped the table 10 points ahead of Chivas, who then beat us in the final to be crowned champions. Yes, I also have no idea how I haven't thrown my PC out the window yet. Lucas Beltran is meant to be our best striker, and Cade Cowell is meant to be our best player. And yes, they do great in the regular season, but they just bottle the big matches. So, I'm going to sell them. I accepted bids of £1.2 million for 33-year-old Beltran and a £7.5 million bid for Cade to hopefully get him gone to Saudi Arabia. So as they both left the club, we replaced Beltran with Matteo Mazzara for a fee of £4.7 million from Cesana in Italy. I'm also promoting our backup left winger Fernando Moreno to take the left wing spot full time. And then sometimes you just need someone that you can trust. So we signed Moon Sung-hwan, who was our star man in our AFC Champions League win with Cerezo Osaka. We've got him in on loan for the season from his new club Al Hazim in Saudi Arabia. So with our new look attack ready, there was just one final piece of the jigsaw: my penultimate coaching badge, the Continental A license. With this, we are going to be unstoppable. However, we did concede 2 minutes into our season opener against Tigres, and we had to rely on a slight deflection which went down as an own goal to salvage the draw. Mazzara scored his first goal of the season in a 2-0 win over Atlas, whereas Moon scored his first goal for the club within 35 seconds of the game against Necaxa. In the Leagues Cup, we topped our group thanks to a win over Orlando City on penalties, and we then comfortably progressed through the knockout stages to reach the final against Austin FC. Moon gave us the lead in the 56th minute, but Austin equalised with a penalty. However, 10 minutes from time, a clever pass to Moreno found Jose Suarez, who scored the winner to win the trophy. Maybe, just maybe, our finals curse is over. Back in Liga MX, Moon Sung-hwan was tearing up the league and ended up with 11 goals and an insane 16 assists, mostly for Mazzara to finish. In all competitions, Moon topped both the scoring and assist charts. I genuinely think I might be in love with this man. His goal contributions obviously saw us top the opening stage table, and this time we didn't lose in the opening stage final. We lost in the semi-finals instead, which isn't ideal really. But of course, there's only one final that matters: the Champions Cup final. So to help us get over the line, we signed 34-year-old Jean-Claude Todibo for $1.5 million. At 34 years old, he still looks incredibly good and will add the experience we need in the back line to not bottle things. Once again, we start in the Champions Cup second round, and we're taking on Alajuelense from Costa Rica. After a goalless first half, I threw the water bottle at half time, and the players responded with 5 second half goals, including 2 from Moon to dominate the first leg at our place, which was very handy as we could only draw the second leg 0-0. In the quarterfinals though, we scored twice within 15 minutes to take the lead over fellow Mexican side Leon. However, they managed to pull one back at the start of the second half, so Moon had to go ahead and restore our 2-goal lead with a header of his own. But Leon just wouldn't lie down. They pulled another goal back in the 68th minute, so this time Moon had to turn provider for us to take a 4-2 lead. But in the 90th minute, Leon, who stayed a thorn on our side, scored a penalty. But fortunately, we fought hard to score a 5th goal in the 91st minute to win 5-3 in a very entertaining game. And obviously the second leg was a total snooze fest. This season, if we can get past Puebla in the semis, we'll face either New England Revolution or Atlanta United, who have the advantage from the first leg in the final. Obviously, Moon opened the scoring for us early on, with a very fortunate deflection taking it past the keeper. We then let Puebla know that we mean business by scoring in the 69th minute to make it 2-0, but they fought hard and pulled back a goal in the 83rd from an excellent ball over the top. Luckily for us though, we gave ourselves a bit of breathing room when Moreno added to his assist by scoring in the 93rd minute to ensure we won the game 3-1. In the second leg, Tinillero scored from a Moon corner, and despite Puebla scoring late on, we'd done just about enough, but at what cost? Moon went off injured just before half time. He's pulled his ankle ligaments and would be out for 2 to 3 weeks. It's going to be incredibly touch and go for him to be fit for the final. But given we'd had to play Tigres twice in the 6 days leading up to the final, it was actually touch and go if any of our players would be at peak fitness. But we have to play the hand that we've been dealt. Moon isn't quite yet fully fit, but I'm going to start him. So as we stepped onto FedEx Field in Washington DC, we knew the game was going to be an uphill battle. It took until the 36th minute for the first highlight of the game, but Moreno's curling effort agonisingly hit the crossbar. The loose ball fell to our man Moon, but the keeper pulled off a remarkable save to keep the game 0-0 heading into half-time. Although Atlanta had more possession, we hadn't allowed them a single shot on goal. I tried to encourage the boys at half-time, but they just couldn't create anything clear-cut. Cardinale was forced to make a save from an impressive Atlanta United free kick, but it was clear that the fatigue in the side was affecting our players, as we'd only had one shot in the half by the 73rd minute. So reluctantly, off comes an exhausted Moon, Suarez and Moreno for a slightly less tired trio of Rodriguez, Rincon and Glass. With 10 minutes to go, I shouted encourage, but it didn't have any effect on our players. So at the end of 90 minutes, with the scores at 0-0, the game will be decided in extra time or penalties. I brought on some fresh wing-backs to give our defence a bit of energy and to try and create some chances out wide. And that's exactly what Sanchez did. Sprinting down the right wing, he put a ball into the middle, but we somehow couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Poetically, it was virtually the exact same big miss we had in the final 12 months ago against Chivas. Does this mean we're going to suffer the same fate and lose the final again? Well, if we were, it was going to be in a penalty shootout, and we'd subbed off our best penalty takers. I told the boys to relax, pick their spot, and don't change their mind. Atlanta were at first, and just scored past Cardinale. Rincon scored for us by sending the keeper the wrong way. Atlanta then scored their second penalty, and Mazzara was incredibly lucky to score his. But when it came to Atlanta's third, Cardinale guessed right and made a huge save. That gave Glass the chance to give us the lead, which he couldn't do. So Atlanta went and scored their fourth penalty, piling the pressure on Espinosa, who had his effort saved. Cardinale had to save the next penalty, or we lose the match. Oh, I never want to talk about cup finals ever again. This was meant to be our season. Moon is about to leave the club after his loan deal expires, and he'd had an incredible season. The rock at the back, Jean-Claude Todibo, who helped us keep so many clean sheets, is due to retire. And to make matters worse, we lost in the closing stage of the league semi-final. Luckily, we did top the actual table in the closing stage of the season, so we are going to get a spot in next season's Champions Cup. But the team won't be as strong. Since we've joined Club America, we've played in 4 league finals, 2 Leagues Cup finals, and 2 Champions Cup finals. And we've lost 6 of them. If we lose any more, I genuinely might just pack this challenge in. So to replace Moon, we signed Peter Majernik for £7.75 million from FC Dallas. And for just £3.2 million, we picked up teenage defender Johannes Heinz from Inter Miami to replace Todibo. Neither of them are quite as good as the players they're replacing, but it's the best we could do given the circumstances. Now, Peter really proved he wasn't quite as good as Moon, as he only scored 1 goal in the 17 games we played in the opening stage of the season. So we dropped him, moved our starting striker Mazzara to the right wing, and started playing a young English kid called Casper Glass instead. We signed the Englishman on a free last summer when he was let go by Man City. Despite only having 9 finishing, it seems like he wanted to redeem himself for missing a crucial penalty in the Champions Cup final. The boy just kept getting in the right positions and scoring goals. By the end of the opening stage, he was the joint 4th top scorer in the league with the 2nd best goals per 90-minute ratio, helping us to the top of the table and a semi-final exit in the knockout rounds. At least we didn't get to lose another final, I guess. But maybe we have found the man to take us to the Champions Cup trophy. This season we're back in the first round again, where Glass didn't score past Aguila from El Salvador, but 5 of his teammates did, as we won the first leg 6-1 away from home. But he did score as we dominated the second leg to progress. Here he opened up the scoring in the second round against Saprissa from Costa Rica. Mazzara extended our lead, and Suarez gave us a third before Glass scored his second from the spot and then completed his hat-trick to win the game 5-1 at our place. In the quarterfinals, we had our first Mexican opponent in Atletico San Luis, and we scored the opening goal of the game. However, San Luis scored an equaliser 10 minutes later. Fortunately for us, the boy Kasper Glass was on hand to give us the lead before Peter Majernik finally popped up with another goal to win the tie 3-1. Then in the second leg, we dominated the match as Glass scored a penalty, Suarez scored from distance, and Onaga from our days at Cerezo Osaka scored a brace to win the game 4-1 and progress, setting up an all-Mexican semi-final where we've been drawn against Monterrey. In Monterrey, the only goal of the game was scored by centre-back Tinajero, taking a slender lead back to our place. Here we had a 10-minute flurry of brilliance, scoring 3 goals between the 25th and 35th minute to win the game 4-0 on aggregate to make our 3rd Champions Cup final in a row. Will it be 3rd time lucky? Well, Toluca are certainly on paper the easiest opponent we'll have come up against in the final, but 6 minutes into the game, they almost punished us. After breaking free from our defenders, they just kept the ball in play and recycled possession to the edge of a D, forcing Cardinale to make an incredible save. However, they had a short corner routine that we weren't prepared for. Catching us with our guard down, Toluca opened up the scoring. Fortunately, 2 minutes later, we got a cross into the near post, where of course, Kasper Glass was quickest to react and levelled up the scores. But the man who got the assist and was playing brilliantly then got injured and was forced off the pitch, a huge blow to our hopes. But without him, we battled on. Suarez spotted a clever run from left winger Moreno, who was in behind the defence, and all he had to do was find Glass, who gave us the lead. Half time, and we are 2-1 up. A third goal here would kill the game off, and Glass had already started celebrating, but his header came back off the crossbar, denying him a hat-trick. But eventually, through sheer persistence, he did manage to score another goal to complete his hat-trick, only for it to be ruled offside for the tightest of margins. So with 20 minutes to go, the lead was still razor thin, and I decided now was the time to shut the game down by lowering the tempo, time wasting, and getting bodies behind the ball. But in the 90th minute, Toluca had a chance. Winning the ball in the midfield, they darted forwards, got the ball central, and unleashed a shot that went wide by mere centimetres. So as the clock ticked down, we managed to hold on in stoppage time, and finally, at the 3rd time of asking, we won the CONCACAF Champions Cup and have ticked off the 3rd trophy in the Pentagon Challenge. I cannot stress to you how much of a relief that was to finally win the trophy. It turns out North America wasn't quite as easy as we thought it was going to be. But most importantly, Kasper Glass had redeemed himself from his penalty miss and was our unlikely hero with his brace. Perhaps he'll come with us on the next leg of our journey. So if you're not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss out on the next leg of our journey as we get closer to completing our quest of winning the Pentagon Challenge.